This is 5 Minute Feng Shui podcast episode 128, Feng Shui Houseplant Rules and Guidelines. Welcome to the 5 Minute Feng Shui podcast, where each week I talk about how to move energy and make money. You'll learn how to create a prosperous home and an abundant life using classical Chinese Feng Shui. I'm your host, Katie Weber, publisher of the Red Lotus Letter, Feng Shui Easing for Wealth. Each week, I'll cover Feng Shui topics that can help you improve your life, share inspiring stories, and always end with 3 easy-to-implement Feng Shui tips that you can put to work right away, and usually in about 5 minutes. Now let's get started on the 5 minutes that could change your life. Good afternoon, Feng Shui friend. I am here to talk all about houseplants. I don't know about you, but I love greenery. There's just no replacement for having a touch of greenery in your home. It just makes it feel more alive and look complete. There's just no kind of replacement for the energy and the visual appeal that a houseplant can give in your home. You know, every interior designer will tell you that every home needs that touch of green, and that a home with plants can turn a home into a living space. And that's because there really isn't a bad plant out there. You know, all plants have benefits, but there are some guidelines that will help you place your plants in your home auspiciously, including plants for wealth and prosperity. Now, very often a room without a plant, it appears lifeless and sterile. It does in my mind anyway. But the question really isn't about which plants are good or bad Feng Shui plants. It's really about where they're placed or how they're placed. So let's jump in there and talk about where to place plants. Now, in general, plants are best suited for the east and southeast because, well, those are the wood sectors. They're harmonized with those sectors and they're beneficial there. They're also good in the south fire, fame, and recognition corner. This is because the south can use the energy of the plants, so they're really wonderful to have there. You can also place them in west and northwest corners. This is where they can enhance those corners. Although typically metal and wood don't go together, it doesn't hurt that corner to have a plant there. So let's talk about how important plants are in terms of activating you for great fortune and good luck. And one of the best ways you can do that is with tall plants. These are perfect for placing in the lucky corner of a room. And the lucky corner of your room is always going to be wherever you stand in the door. It's usually to your left and diagonal to the door. It's where your eye naturally falls. And by putting a tall lamp there or a tall tree or a tall plant, you will always pull your eye way across the room. It makes the room seem larger. It draws you into the room and it activates the room for luck and good fortune. I highly recommend that you do not miss the opportunity to enhance and energize the lucky corner of your room. And it's great when you have a plant there. Now, if you have a bathroom, let's say, for instance, and it's in an earth corner like southwest, northeast, or center, the center sector, these are earth sectors. And having a bathroom in those locations can actually kind of push down the luck of those corners. So, for instance, in the southwest, this is the romance direction. This is the corner of the woman of the house, of marriage, of love and relationships, and all the loving feelings that we have. The northeast is the corner of decision making. The center is it encompasses health and wealth. It encompasses happiness, and it is the backbone around which all the energy in your home moves around. These are the 3 earth corners: southwest, northeast, and center. And when you have a bathroom located here, you can add a small plant to the bathroom because this will help to offset the drain that the bathroom has on these sectors. Now, you don't want to go in there making it a greenhouse. Just a small plant is perfectly fine and enough to just do a little bit of a balancing act there with that drain on the earth corners. Now, pretty much small leafy plants can go anywhere, whether it's an ivy or a fern or a peace lily. Having plants indoors is an excellent energizer for growth and for health, and that little touch of life, I think, is essential for almost every room, really. A pot of ivy on an end table is appropriate anywhere, and it's a nice decorative accent to boot. I love that. Now let's talk about where not to place plants. There's not a whole lot of Feng Shui plant rules, but one of them is never ever to have plants in a bedroom. Even though you see it all the time in decorating magazines and online decor websites and that kind of thing, it's just you never want to do it because the energy is a growing energy. And we need our bedrooms to be a little bit more yin, and plants are growing yang energy. And it's also thought that the plants will start to draw on the energy of the people in the room because people are related to relationships, and we don't want to have. And what does a plant do? It sinks its roots into the earth and uses the earth and drains the earth of nutrients. So we don't want to have them in the bedroom. Now, if you do have them, it can compete with the energy of you and your partner in the room, and it can take a toll on your relationship. We just don't want to do that. The other place where we don't want to place plants is bathrooms. When you have a plant in a bathroom, it's like growing in waste. I know it's not a pretty picture to think about, it isn't. But if you think about that, this is really, you don't want a plant in there. This is really a very functional room, and you want, that's not to say it can't be pretty, can't be attractive, but typically you want to have a bathroom that's appealing, but it's a very functional room, and you can decorate and enhance with plants elsewhere in your house. But if you do have that southwest, northeast, or center bathroom, you can put that small plant there because it will help manage that effect, that drain that the bathroom has on those corners and the relationship sector, the thought and intellect decision-making sector, and also that center sector. Now let's talk about large plants and plant groupings. I know some folks have like a big corner, maybe they've got a whole lot of plants there, they're plant maniacs. I get that. I'm that way in my garden outside. I've always said that if Tim ever goes bankrupt, it's because I've gone to the nursery and the garden center just way too many times, and I have to contain myself. It's true. I do love to buy plants, and it's just a point of joy for me. But let's talk about large plants because sometimes we have a plant, we have it forever. We have a plant that our realtor, when we bought the house that we're in now, his name was Fred. And when Fred gave us, or when we bought the house and we moved in, he came and brought us the most beautiful corn plant. It's what we call them here. It's a Dracaena. It's a big, tall plant and with big green leaves, and they grow in those sort of woody looking parts. I'm trying to think what you call that. It's a trunk, and then the green comes out of it. But most of the time they're called here corn plants. And it was a lovely sized plant. Well, it's gone bananas. It's huge, but I just don't have the heart to leave it outdoors all year long. I bring it in during the year and I put it in the lucky corner because I love that energy, and it's just grown. But what happens is those big plants have a lot of energy. So you want to put them and position them carefully. So for a large indoor tree or plant really should not be placed in any of the earth sectors. So try to avoid placing them in the southwest, the northeast, or the center sector. And you also want to avoid the north sector. Now, the excess wood, especially from a large plant or a big grouping of them, will pull on the relationship corner of the southwest. It will drain the intellectual decision making and educational wisdom portion of the northeast, and it will also take a drain on the center, which has an effect on everything in our lives. The center is one of those areas we really want to protect, and it's an earth corner. And those large plants or big groupings, plant groupings, will impact your health and relationships and drain them, and we don't want to do that. And in fact, I will often look and see the Spanish style hacienda, and more commonly I see them down here where we live next to Mexico. We have a lot of Spanish architecture throughout the U.S., and many times we'll have those interior courtyards, and then sometimes people will put a big tree in there. And whenever there's a tree in the center, it really takes a drain and a toll on relationships. I do remember Jennifer Aniston and Brad Pitt had a house, and it had a giant tree that was in the missing center sector, and that was the house that they eventually divorced in. And this is one of those things that can happen when you have a large plant or a grouping in the center sector or in an earth sector. And that's because wood destroys earth, like I mentioned earlier about those roots going into the ground. This is all part of the classical 5-element theory. Now in the north, the wood energy drains the water energy of the north, which is income and career and business and opportunity. And this can impact your earnings. It can impact your career as those plants drink all the water energy, read money, energy of the career corner. We don't want to put plants in the north corner. This is just not the place to put them. Instead, put large plants or plant groupings in the east, the southeast, the south, or west, or northwest. Here they're enhanced, or at least they're not going to harm these sectors. And that's what's really important, is that we always want to make sure that if we're going to put something in a corner, that it's either going to enhance it, or at least it won't harm it. This is it. The northwest and the west metal will prevail over the plant energy. So that's a bonus in terms of it not creating any kind of harmful effect. Now let's talk about some plant myths. Now, one of the things that I've seen come up and become very, very popular, I don't know, I guess about in the last 10 years, is incorporating succulents and cactus in interiors. Now, there are several types of plants that we can use indoors, but one real rule of thumb is that cactus plants aren't good in Feng Shui, and it's just simply wrong. Cactus plants are great Feng Shui, but as houseplants, they are not good Feng Shui if they have thorns or bristles. You don't want to ever be stuck by something. Those little pointy ends, they're not so bad as long as you're not going to have to get out a pair of tweezers and pull something out of your skin. And believe me, as a child growing up in Texas, I have pulled many a thorn from my feet and hands and everywhere else. Now, indoors cactus plants can be helpful in the east and southeast because of their ability, much like jade plants, to hold water. Because they're succulents, they store water, and that's great Feng Shui. You just want to make sure that if you have a cactus plant with thorns, those belong outdoors. And let me tell you why they're great Feng Shui, because thorns in the exterior of your home or in the garden at the outside that surrounds your home, they act as a protector. Whereas inside, those little points and sharp points are going to be aimed at you. Now that brings us to spiky plants. Like their cactus cousins, spiky plants like the Dracaena marginata, also called the Madagascar dragon tree or simply just dragon trees, these are best suited for the west and northwest corners because of their pointy tips, that little metallic, like a pin, like the tip of a pin. It's helpful that someone doesn't sit next to them because their spike shape really emits a sharp energy. So just, you can have them. They're perfectly fine. I'm not super fond of them, I will tell you. I know that they've become popular again, especially in contemporary interiors. And if it's in an area that's in the west or northwest, I say go for it. And even in the north, I think would be perfectly fine to have it. You can also have it in the south because if you want to think of it as the shape of a triangle or the point of a triangle, like the triangle is the shape of the fire sector. So that's an option for you. But we just want to also look at any kind of plant that has a sharp tip, that like the snake plant or mother-in-law's tongue, some people call it. I know it as a sansevieria. Now this plant has its points up versus out. So it's really fine to have these plants in either the wood or metal sectors. You can also put it in the south sector. Again, I'm not super crazy about having them in the north sector. I would avoid doing that there, or putting them in the earth sectors. That's just pretty much my rule of thumb as plants go. I think you're just better off avoiding them in those locations. Now let's talk about plants as enhancers. Plants are great for encouraging growth, resiliency, and good health. One plant that can actually go in the north, now I'm going to break a rule here, is a blooming orchid plant. If you have an orchid plant, this is an excellent feng shui. Again, we're talking about the flower aspect, because when you think about orchids, they're really they take very little water. They're just a gentle sipper of water, and the bloom of the orchid is very auspicious for career and for wealth. So wonderful to have in your living room. Also, white and purple blooms are especially auspicious. They're great too in the southeast sector as well. Love those, especially the purple ones. Now this year with the 5 yellow in the southeast well sector, you could also add a white blooming orchid there. That would be beautiful. And let's talk about plants as remedies. I already mentioned the orchid plant, the white bloom of the orchid plant being in as a remedy for the 5 yellow. You can also use the lucky bamboo. How many times have we seen that at the grocery store, the garden center? They're all over the place these days, and in every kind of shape and variety. It's really remarkable how many ways lucky bamboo can be found. Now, I particularly like to use them as a drain against the 5 yellow or black 2 illness afflictions. This is an energy that can create very ill health, accident, severe problems. And because it's an earth affliction, what do we do? How do we drain that? Well, we're talking metal and wood drain earth. So if you can have wind chimes in there, but since we're talking about plants, we'll stick with plants. I really like the lucky bamboo for managing the 5 yellow and the black 2, because these can be like, you can put the 3 bamboo stalks in a glass vase with some stones and fill it with water, and they will help to drain the energy of the 5 yellow and black 2. These are really, I think it's a great feng shui remedy, and you can find them absolutely anywhere. It's inexpensive, and you can, if yours peter out, you can always find them and replace them easily and inexpensively. Just about at anywhere you look, you can find them easily. Now let's talk about and end on some good feng shui plant guidelines. Make sure that you keep your plants trimmed and looking lush and healthy. This is so important. We don't want to have these spindly, leggy plants, or the one that just, it's a horror. Whenever I see it, I'm just like, I feel so sorry for the plant. It's when you see the ivy that has been left to grow into this tendril, and then they run it over the door frame and then pin it up to the corners of the room. And oh my gosh, every time I see that, I think of if you let one of your fingernails just grow and grow and grow, never ever cut it, it would just wind and go all over different directions, and it would look terrible. Well, that's kind of what those plants look like to me, and every time I see them, I'm just mortified. I always want to go and just whack it off and just repot it and let it grow out and be lush and full again. So spindly, leggy plants, you can chop them off, you can throw them out, you can compost them, do whatever you want, but don't let them get spindly or leggy. That's not what that means. That maybe they're not in the right environment. The other thing is we always want to make sure that we keep plants out of the bedroom. Now, this is a question that comes up frequently, and this is about faux or silk plants. There's a lot of contention that, you need to have real plants. Well, sometimes in our interiors, it's just not possible because, well, we don't live in a greenhouse. And a lot of us are challenged for light and to have adequate light to support particular plants. And that's why I'm a big believer that having a faux plant, a silk plant, is perfectly fine as long as it looks good. When you look at so it's sort of like this. I look at a lot of interior photographs. Let me tell you, a lot of them, and I'll look at some, and you just look at them, and you go, fake flowers, and then the other ones you look at and you go, oh, those are pretty. That's a pretty plant. And, you don't know, is it fake? Is it real? And to me is if you look at something and you go, that's fake, if that just registers immediately fake, or you go, hey, that's pretty. If your initial response is fake, then don't buy that plant and don't use that plant, because chances are that's going to be everybody else's response too. And you don't want that. You want to have a silk plant that looks really, really good. And what's important too is that you maintain them. And one of the things that silk plants suffer from is getting dusty. And one of the things I like to do with silk plants, and it's super easy, is if you've got, let's say, an ivy that you put on an end table, you can take that out of the pot, possibly. Sometimes you can. Sometimes they're stuck in like a little bouquet, with a big plastic stem. If you could take it out and I'll rinse them off in the kitchen sink. I love to just wash them. I think washing plants and getting that dust off is so important, because that's how I would treat a real plant. Like my plant Fred, it gets dusted. He gets to go sit out in the sun, and I give him a shower and wash his leaves, and I guess that's why he's happy with me. Anyway, but yeah, make sure that if you do have silk plants, make them good-looking plants, and make them keep them clean, and don't let them get dusty. And the same is true with your regular plants. If real plants, you don't want to let those get dusty either. Lastly, avoid bonsai trees and plants. These represent stunted and contained growth, and we don't want that. We don't want to feel like we are a plant in a pot that's too small. It's sort of like walking around in shoes that are a size too small. It's painful, and you're not going to get very far because you're limping from all that pain. So make sure that, when you look at, they're so appealing, bonsai trees. I think they really are. They're very appealing. They're beautiful. They're artsy. You think that these are long-lived plants, but I think that in a home, I think they do represent that stunted growth, and we don't want to have that in our homes. We want to see our lives full of growth and good strength and resiliency, and all the good health that comes with that. All right, there you have it. A little primer on houseplants and Feng Shui. So what did we learn today? Let's go through the tips. Tip number 1 is small plants can pretty much go anywhere, and don't worry about where you put them. Just keep them nice looking, and use a little touch of green in every room. Every room needs it. Tip number 2, don't place plants in the bedroom, and don't put them in earth sectors. They can harm your relationship if they're in your bedroom, and your health as well. The same thing is true if you have them in those corners, those earth corners of Southwest, the love and marriage sector, and the sector of women. And I will tell you, ladies, we need all the energy we can get, right? You don't want to go stick in a big old plant in the Southwest corner, because you might say, why am I so tired? All the time. And I'm a little ticked off too. Plants can make you angry. It's women are earth sectors, or earth elements, and we're ruled by the earth element. And while I love plants, and plants are wonderful, they can create a fatigue. And sometimes what happens when you get tired, you get cranky. So go check the Southwest corners. Make sure you don't have a plant in there that's too big. The same thing is true in your garden. Sometimes if you have a shrub that's overgrown, there you go. Might be time to either transplant it or take it out. Lastly, let's talk about Plants as enhancers. We love the idea of putting plants in the location where they're going to be the most effective. And effective for what? Well, wealth and prosperity and career. Now, the one plant rule that we have about plants and career is putting a white orchid, a white flowering orchid in the north corner to give you a career bump. Really good idea this year, also helpful in the southeast as well. And of course, succulents, these are great enhancers. A jade plant is so highly regarded because it holds water. And what does that mean? It's holding wealth. That is the element that's associated with assets and growing wealth. And you want to have those types of fleshy plants in the wealth corner of your house with like a jade plant or some type of succulent. It could be even what's considered a cactus. Remember, as long as it doesn't have those thorns. And I'm going to throw in tip number 4, and that is cactus is great feng shui, just outdoors where it can be protected, not indoors where it's spiky and those little thorns can hurt. All right, well, that's all we have for this episode of 5-Minute Feng Shui. I hope you get some plants in your house. As always, I'd love it if you leave me an iTunes review, and I'd love to hear from you. Send me a note, drop me a line. I'd love to hear from you anytime. And thanks so much for listening. I really appreciate you. Have a great Wednesday.